We've got hiking guy Cris Hazzard
coming up right now. Hello, everybody. This is Derek, and with me today is the only man to spend the night in a Sasquatch nest high in the trees with tons of apples all over his body, only to wake up and realize it was an eagle's nest because Sasquatches are fake. Carl Mandrioli. There he is.
Then how did I get apples all over myself?
Well, you carried him up there. I don't know.
I got you. Okay.
You get that?
Welcome to the Backpack Wishers podcast, everybody. My name is Carl Mandrioli. With me today is Derek Somerville. He went to the emergency room because he drank too much invisible ink. And he's actually still waiting to be seen.
Oh, God. Every time I'm like, this can't get worse. It gets worse. It just gets worse.
They're the best. I know. You're welcome.
Worse.
You're welcome.
It's almost becoming a thing where like it's so bad. I want to see if you can outdo it, you know? And it's becoming fun. It's good.
You should say the same thing every episode because you do. So well done there.
It's just a reaction.
We've got a guy who I've actually been following for years now. I've looked at his stuff. He's got an excellent website full of resources. He's actually got a permit hack on his website that if you want to check it out, it's there, but we're going to talk about that in a future episode that should be very helpful for those that are looking to get those hard permits. And yeah, Cris hiking guy Hazzard. Yeah.
Sounds fun. And he's going to give you a lot. He knows his beacons. He knows his iPhones. He knows all about it. So we're going to learn about it.
He's got all that covered. So this episode is entitled, listen to this before you buy or use an SOS device. Yeah. If you already have one, you might want to consider upgrading. If you don't have one, this should help narrow things down. And then he's got more videos out there as well. So before we get to it, though, we've got our Bible verse of the episode, Proverbs 3:27. Yep. Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due when it is in your power to do it. All right. So, Derek.
There we go.
Would you use your GPS beacon to press the red button for somebody who is struggling a little bit if they asked?
I would. Okay. I would like to think I would. I've almost pressed it for you, so the trip would be a little bit more mellow. But,
let's play this out here. I'm not saying that they are dying. I'm not saying that they have broken a bone. I'm saying they're struggling a little bit, but they're asking you to press the button.
Then you press the button.
So by pressing the button, let's say there's somebody not from your group, what you're committing to is at least 2 hours sitting there with them.
I think you got to discern, like, do they really need the button pressed?
A lot of people that press the button don't.
They don't. So I think you got to discern that, number one. If you're like, they need the button pressed, then you're going to do the right thing.
You don't know them, so you don't really know what kind of situation they have. Right?
I mean, if I see like bone out of skin, I'll probably push the button.
Obviously, but they're just struggling a little bit.
If they're like hypochondriacing it, if they're like, then I think I think there are a lot of situations where you could talk somebody down. Let me give you a little food. Let me give you a little heart to heart. We'll get Carl out of here. We'll make it more peaceful.
Okay. So what would be like, referring to our last episode, a red flag for somebody where you're like, you don't really need that pressed? What would they say? Something that you're like, this is a sham.
Oh, like let's see. I think if they're like, I don't know, like it just depends. Like if you see somebody like just overreacting, but there's no like physical visual injury. Okay. We have food and water nearby.
Like they say, I feel like I'm going to throw up.
Let's sit down. I'm not going to red button you on that one.
Please press the red button. I don't like to throw up unless I'm on a helicopter.
I'm going to go Carl mode. I'm going to go like, listen, I'm looking at you right now. You say you need to throw up right now. I'm going to give you a C+ on the authenticity of that. And I think you're not worthy of my red button press. Like, are you going to go up there? I think you could really help people calm down or what, probably help them calm down if you just started grading everything, because it's going to get their mind off of everything. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to give your pack setup here like a B+. They're like, they'll be so thrown. Like, wait, what? I said I'm going to throw up and my leg hurts. Like, what are you talking about? My pack setup?
Yeah.
And you're going to get them off. Yeah. You're going to, So I think you might do better than me.
All right.
Yeah.
We are going to bring our pack skill on the next trip, and we're going to interview people and ask them if they want their pack weighed.
That's a good idea too. If somebody wants to,
I can just be like, throw up in a minute. Let's weigh your pack.
Yeah. just get it out and jangle it in front of them. Be like, before we do that, let's just see how well you packed.
This is like a minor concern I have with the availability of these beacons and the fact that we have one is that you go to places and some people like they're pressing the button willy-nilly. They're like, I'm tired. I could really use a helicopter ride back, and they don't really need it as an emergency. And so I'm concerned that we'll get asked at some point. Yeah. And then at that point, we'll have to wait for 2 hours. And so I think that part of the deal is you have to communicate to them like, okay, we'll wait with you. It's probably take about 2 hours for the helicopter to arrive, and we'll wait with you because we have to, so they can locate where we're at.
Right.
And if at that point they're like still wanting to do that, then I think you take it more seriously, right?
Yeah, you have to.
Okay.
It changes your trip too.
That's right. We'll see what Cris Hazzard has to say about this stuff and more. So we've got him, the hiking guy, right now. With me today is a man who's been called the most intelligent person in the backpacking world, a man who has completed one of the hardest hikes in America, the hiking guy himself, Cris Hazzard. How's it going, sir?
Hey, Carl. I don't think I'm the most intelligent, but I
You've
try.
been called the most intelligent. I know for a fact. I was watching a recent video. Like, I don't know if it's the new year or whatever, but people start ranking, like, the top content providers or YouTubers, and you were on a top 10 list, and that you were called the most intelligent person in backpacking.
Oh boy, there's a lot of pressure there. Yeah.
Well, didn't Dan Becker have you on as like, I got to bring in some expertise, so I'm going to bring Cris in here.
Yeah, I look at myself as a tech nerd who's also an outdoors nerd. So it's a nice marriage of those two worlds. So, I love hiking gadgets and gear, whether it's a sleeping pad or GPS or satellite communicator, but also I'm into the other stuff like the fun phones, and hopefully I'll be able to scratch up the dough to get one of those Apple Vision Pros, which they just announced is coming out in a couple weeks. So
what is that? I haven't even read about that yet. What's the Apple Vision Pro?
It's not necessarily for the outdoors, but those are those virtual reality goggles.
Okay. But
what I like about it is that you can watch, I haven't seen it, but I heard that the spatial video, it's essentially like a mellow version of 3D, not like where sharks are jumping out of your face, but just sort of like almost like that parallax feature that you see like on the Apple TV screensaver if you have one of those.
Okay.
But you're able to shoot video like that on the iPhone now. And I'm not sure what the roadmap is for that type of video, but it would be great to shoot trail videos in that spatial format and then be able to share them with my audience and folks at home using those Vision Pro goggles. Because then you put those goggles on, you watch that spatial video, and it feels like you're on the trail. That's what my hope is.
My buddy has this idea of, so you're on the trail and you have something like that on your face, and as you're hiking, suddenly like you're in some sort of like Lord of the Rings territory. You have orcs jumping out at you, and you're like battling them as you go, but virtually. But it kind of like works with the local environment. Is that the next step, do you think?
Like the Pokemon Go.
Yeah, but just like I don't know how you take damage, or if like the goggles shake so it feels like you're taking damage. I don't know.
I'm sure if somebody figures out a way to make money off of that, they will do it.
Okay. All right. Taking backpacking trips to the next level right there.
Yeah.
All right. So like when you get recognized out on the trail, are people calling you Cris, Mr. Hazzard, hiking guy? What do you go by when you're out there?
Or just guy?
Just guy.
Hey, guy. First of all, let me just say, I see people all the time when I'm out hiking, and I love it. So if you ever see me out on the trail and you recognize me, please say hello, because I love meeting all of you. And I meet people, I meet people in the Grand Canyon. I meet people in the Olympics, not just here in Southern California where I'm based.
Okay.
But usually somebody will give me a look and look at me quizzically for a second, and they'll be like, "You're a hiking guy," or they'll say, "I know you from YouTube," or something like that.
Right.
But I've met some great people, and honestly, it's not, there's things that motivate you, but meeting people and knowing that I'm making a difference and helping people either understand a piece of gear or feel more confident on the trail, I just love that. That's what I need to kind of combat the normal negativity that you would get online from the, just the normal stuff that people post who are in a sour mood sometimes.
That's a nice way of saying it, for sure.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. So people, you've had your content out there for years. I mentioned before we started recording that, like, I've been a fan of yours for years. I've used it as a resource. I've watched your videos for, information, inspiration. But for those who aren't familiar with your content, people tend to find you when they want to learn what?
Yeah, so most of my traffic is interesting comes from search, right? So there's kind of two ways you could do it, especially on YouTube. You can just make videos for an audience, or you can make videos that people are searching for. And generally, somebody's searching for a trail guide, like how do I hike Mount Baldy, or how do I hike Half Dome, Whitney, or Grand Canyon rim to rim. And that's the entry points, the way people find me. And other times it's with gear, right? How do I use my Garmin? The common thread in all of these stories I hear from people is, I bought a Garmin GPS and I have no idea how to use it. It's confusing, and so, which it is.
Okay.
So I have how-tos on that type of stuff. But generally, that's the way people have come in. And originally, I started out with just a website. It was actually just to help people navigate hikes. I just put my directions up there. Wasn't anything I planned on doing as a career or a job. It was less than a hobby, if there's such a thing. And that just sort of took off organically, got good, search results on Google. And then I started supplementing those guides with videos that I would shoot on a GoPro. And eventually it sort of transformed more into a video experience or a YouTube channel where I'm looking more at people, consuming the contents as video, first, and then maybe going to the website to supplement that.
Okay.
That's how people consume these days. There's less search and there's less opportunity in search, I think. Not to get too deep here, but there's a lot of ads and a lot of stuff there, but a video seems to be a good way to do it. People learn visually, and telling the story of how to hike a trail or how to use your Garmin or your satellite communicator is much easier to do via video, to show you, as opposed to, write about it.
Right. Like press here, then when you see the screen, do this, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
If it's something not as techy or not as challenging to learn, I do prefer just give me 3 bullet points. Just, give me the basics and I'll go from there. But something more involved for sure is helpful to see the videos, especially if they're reasonably lengthed, if that makes any sense. Sometimes I want to know a quick thing and it's a minute and a half and I see this 8-minute long video. I'm like, oh, just get to the point. So yours are good.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, that's part of it too, as I've evolved into hopefully a better visual explainer and storyteller. It's really just distilling it down to what are the most important things that I need to share or show you, and getting to that right away, and less of me yapping about stuff, which is, I mean, that's how YouTube is, right? It's an amateur thing where people talk about different experiences, but the reality is, I'm like you. When I look for something, I don't want to have to sift through it to get the information. Like, I just kind of want it right away, or I want to know that it's not going to be a heavy lift on my time to figure something out.
For sure. All right, well, let's get into it. I got just kind of like a list of backpacking or tech related questions related to the outdoors. And so I just feel like you're a great resource for us all. So I'm gonna tap into what you know. And I've learned some of the stuff already through other videos. Like, I think I watched, I referenced the one with Dan Becker, and I watched that he was kind of interviewing you. But then after I learned what you shared there, I had a different experience with Garmin specifically. And so I'm just curious to kind of reconcile this all together. So starting it off, let's start off with the iPhones. You already mentioned the iPhone. So they have these SOS features, and do you feel like at this point they're adequately similar to the backpacking counterparts, the Garmins and the Zolios and all that?
It's similar, but it's definitely not the same. You have to remember that your phone, even though that it's waterproof and it's probably a lot more rugged than in the model that came out 3 or 4 years ago, it's not an outdoor instrument, right? Okay. So it's designed for casual use, if you need help. But that said, what it can do is incredible. What cell phones can do now and what they're going to be able to do in the next year or two is incredible in terms of satellite connectivity. Mm-hmm. But really, if you want a proper outdoor instrument that you can thrash, you can sit on, you can drop on granite, you can use in the rain, you're going to want something like a Garmin, or a Zolio, or a Motorola Defy, something like that.
Okay.
That said, what the iPhone 14 and 15 can do, they can, if you're not familiar, if you're listening, you can do an emergency SOS via
Right.
satellite. It's free, at least for the time being. Apple just extended it for another year with the iPhone 14, another year of free SOS. And you can call for help. So whether you are out hiking or whether you're just driving and there's no cell phone service and you're stuck or you're hurt or whatever, you have a lifeline. It will hook you into I think it's called a PSAP, a 911 call center,
Right.
and you can call for help. So if you are maybe an Apple user and you have an older iPhone, it's definitely worth upgrading just to have that feature, which could obviously save your life, and it has saved people's lives. It's in the news all the time. Different stories. It works really, really well. I took the iPhone 14 and an inReach to a box canyon in Nevada, Icebox Canyon. It's at Red Rocks, right outside of Vegas. Really steep, challenging canyon. And, iPhone worked great. The only catch is it's a directional antenna, which means you have to point the phone at where the satellite is. All the satellite information is already loaded onto the phone. Phone knows where the satellite is. It has a gyroscope in there, and you have to point at it. And I have a little bit of a background in ham radio and shortwave radio, and I know from that a directional antenna really improves the signal strength and the connectivity. And it was a smart thing for them to do, as opposed to putting a big antenna on top of it. But it will work. Like if you just have it sitting, it will still work to trigger an SOS. And there was it was on Angeles Crest Highway here outside of LA in the mountains. Somebody drove their car off the side of the road and they had the emergency crash detection on their phone, and they had satellite SOS, and that triggered an SOS to, the LA Sheriff's search and rescue, and they got rescued, it blows my mind. It blows my mind. So,
no, I had that happen to me. I got in a major car accident just a couple months ago, and I didn't go off the road. I didn't need helicopter rescue, but it did automatically call 911 for me. So I was shaken up, recovering, and then my phone's dialing, and then somebody's like, "Hello, are you okay?" And I was like, "Wait, what? What's?" I'm like, "Am I unconscious and dreaming, or what's going on here?"
It's amazing. It's amazing, and that type of feature is a little bit better than what Garmin has. Garmin has a version of that, but not integrated with the inReach technology with the satellite connectivity. But yeah, I mean, the phones are great. If you're not going to have anything and you just want something, having a phone works great, especially if you're a casual hiker, right? A lot of people won't go out in hardcore conditions. They're just going to hike when it's nice out. They're going to use their phone. They're going to use all trails. They're going to use the camera. Having a phone that also has satellite communicator in there is incredibly powerful. I mean, exponentially more powerful, and we're safer than it would be to not have that.
So I recently dropped my phone, a hard drop where it smashed the screen protector, the glass screen protector. That didn't trigger anything. The crash did, obviously. I shared that. If I took a hard fall with my phone where the phone is getting, it's landing hard, let's say I take a 10-foot fall or whatever, would it trigger the SOS, you think?
I'm not sure. I think it takes a few different factors into the logic there. It's seeing what you're doing. So if you're in the car, it knows you're moving at a car pace, so it probably determined that you're in a car already.
Right.
If you're walking, it's probably a little more tolerant and probably wouldn't do that unless you're doing an activity. They have crash detection. So if you have, say, an Apple Watch and you're recording, I think the example they used on their on the Apple video and the marketing thing was a mountain bike. So if you have crash detection on, it knows you're mountain biking. It takes a fall, like you just mentioned, 10 feet.
Okay.
Then it knows that you've fallen.
Okay.
But interesting thing too. I just read before we were talking. I don't know. You probably saw that Alaska plane where the door ripped off. Did you see that?
Oh, yeah. What?
Sorry, yeah.
The one where they're just flying, and then just randomly the side panel came off.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So they found an iPhone that had fallen back down 17,000 feet, and it wasn't cracked and it was working.
Wasn't cracked. Like like a really strong OtterBox case?
No, I think it was just the phone. So, I mean,
what?
it's just a testament to how durable they are.
Okay.
And, you know, I love the phone. I carry an iPhone with me, but the problem is when it rains out, that touchscreen is just, it's okay. It can be okay. But when it's really pouring or when you have like wet gloves on,
right,
it's just not, or if you have, you know, mittens or over mittens on, it just doesn't.
It's not going to happen.
Doesn't work. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's good information. So let's jump into the Garmin insurance. Overall, from your experience and what you've researched with Garmin, for people who are either concerned about getting into dangerous situations, they just want peace of mind, they are doing an aggressive adventure, a risky adventure, do you think the Garmin insurance is worth it? What do you think?
100%. So there's two flavors. There's the Garmin supplemental insurance, and just if you're not familiar with this, you get SOS included. So you can hit the SOS button. That's part of your subscription, part of like your messaging and everything. But they have a supplemental insurance in case you get charged for your rescue. Now, I've talked to a lot of people in search and rescue in the industry, and generally you only get charged if you are negligent. Now, I know that there's been a YouTuber or two posted a video recently where they had, I think, like a $60,000 bill.
Yep, that was Dixie.
Dixie, yeah.
Yep.
So that's not common, and that didn't jibe with what everyone in the industry had told me. They had said, you know, I talked to many different people who are in charge of charging for these rescues and planning. And basically they said, you know, if something like a trail is closed and you're on the trail and you need a rescue, you're negligent, you'll probably have to pay for it. There was an example, I think it was a guy who went like whitewater rafting in a little inflatable raft that he got at Walmart. That was like a kid's thing, you know, like kind of common sense, right? So when I saw that Dixie video, I was pretty shocked because that didn't jibe. And I've been talking to a lot of people, following up with a lot of my contacts in the industry. I'm going to have a video coming out on what it costs these days. But I would say that $59,000 bill that Dixie got is not common.
Okay.
And there's a lot of factors. But what's important to know now is that the whole idea of search and rescue in the backcountry is entering a new age. And it's, you know, in the old days before InReach and before PLBs, if someone was lost, they had to search and run a grid pattern. You didn't really know where somebody was necessarily, you know. Now, when you hit the button on that, there's a GPX fix. They know where you are within, you know, at least 30 feet, usually, if not more. And, you know, they can find you right away. If you have a two-way communicator, you can tell them what's wrong. You could say, I'm lost, whatever it is. You can diagnose a condition there. So it's incredibly powerful. But the thing is, as more cell phones go out there that have this emergency SOS, as more devices, affordable devices that come out, it's like there's this Motorola Defy Satellite Link, which is a new one. It's got a $5 a month plan.
Right.
And it you know, I saw it on sale over the holidays for like $100. So it's really becoming a very accessible technology. And backcountry search and rescue is going to hit a point where there's a lot more people calling, right? It's in a state of, yeah. And as you probably know, I mean, search and rescue, or maybe not know, but, you know, search and rescue is not something that's outside of the national parks is really funded. It's generally volunteer powered. And there is generally some budget carved out of another budget to, you know, pay for aircraft or whatever. But it's going to get a lot more intense, and it's probably going to get to the point where it's sort of bursting at its seams, and it's going to have to be addressed in a more concrete way in order to deal with all these people. So things are in a state of flux, and, you know, maybe 2 years ago, you would never be charged if there's, you know, because there's maybe 3 rescues a season. If there's 300 rescues a season, there's going to be problems. And there's no standard across the United States. There's no standard across the world on what a rescue costs, who's going to rescue you, what's involved with it. So the prudent thing to do is to get the supplemental insurance. And for Garmin, it's actually an insurance plan. If you have a Spot or a Motorola, it is there's a service called Overwatch and Rescue. I think it's like $35 a year. That's a little bit different. It's like AAA. It's not insurance, so you don't have to file a claim. They'll just cover it for you. But even if you are prepared and you're experienced and you're like, I don't really need that, you never know what's going to happen. You never know if you're going to have a heart attack, if a rock's going to fall on your head. I mean, there's a forest fire, there's a flood. I mean, you can get stuck. There's a lot of things that can happen. So it's worth just having that extra level of protection when you go out there. And services like the one I mentioned, that Overwatch and Rescue, and I've formed a relationship with them. I've gone hiking with the team there. They're really great folks, but they even do small things like they'll pick up your car at the trailhead, right?
Oh,
just little
interesting.
things.
Yeah.
Or if you are, if you're in another country and you need to come back home to your local hospital, like they'll send a nurse to bring you on the plane back. Like, it's just
Next
for,
level stuff.
for like $35 a year or whatever. The Garmin's
I'll check
around
that
that. It's worth it. So,
yeah, I've actually been somebody who's needed the rescuing. It was almost 30 years ago now, where I had a search and rescue in Yosemite, and I want to say it was like, I don't know, I was young enough where my parents covered the cost, so it was a couple $1,000s, I think. So hearing her bill was kind of blowing my mind. But then as I was doing more research, I know some states won't charge you at all. Like, for example, I think Wyoming was one where it's like you're not going to even get a bill. And so that's where it gets confusing. It's like, okay, well, should you do your research before you're going, or is it just, get the blanket coverage?
Get the blanket coverage. If you really want to know, the best thing to do is to call the land manager where you're going, whether it's a national park or something, and just ask directly and say, if I get in trouble, who's going to pay for it? Hers was a little bit different. I would say that if a lot of it depends on the type of rescue and what's happening. If they have to have a helicopter with like a nurse on board, like, an aircraft nurse and everything, like it's going to cost more money. There's different things, and it depends. And Yosemite is one of the few places that has a dedicated search and rescue team, or a couple teams.
Right.
Yeah. But it's all over the place. It's all over the place. So like you said, like just, cover your butt and just get the policy for a few bucks.
That being said, I don't know if you had the same experience as me, or maybe because you're a hiking guy, you get through on these land management phone calls. But if I try to call, I feel like if I try to call anybody, I can't get through, whether it's national parks, national forests, or if you do get through, they're like, oh, let me transfer you to somebody who knows about this. And then you're just on perpetual hold. So kudos to you if you can get through, because I cannot.
Yeah, it's tough. The best one I've had luck with is the one up by Whitney, the Eastern Sierra one. That's pretty good. Somebody will generally pick up there.
Okay.
But if you call up the road at the Bishop BLM office, that's one of those ones where it'll go into voicemail. I mean, it's this nothing new. All of these land management agencies are underfunded, understaffed, and they're managing thousands and thousands of acres of land, and it's a small team, and they do multiple things. So
100%. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so next thing I got for you is, you've covered a lot on your YouTube channel about the different satellite beacons and the different services and what this one does and what that one does. So for somebody who's trying to figure out which one they want to buy, what do they need to know before they buy or use a satellite beacon for an emergency? Any kind of tips or tricks or just things they should be thinking about?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I would say definitely invest in one. And if you're not going to invest in one, look into whether you can rent one. Sometimes you can rent them. I know certain REIs will rent them out to you.
Okay.
So that's something to consider. If you're going to go out there, don't risk your life, have some sort of a SOS capability. There's an older technology. It's called SARSAT, and it's called the device called a PLB. And it is It's a sort of the original emergency satellite distress beacon. It's one way, so there's no two-way communications. You hit a button, and the Air Force or the Coast Guard here in the States get a signal, and they come to your GPS position. They rescue you. It's supported mostly around the world. That's the best bet if you don't want to get a subscription. For that, you just pay a few $100 for the device. I think they're somewhere in the $300 to $400 range. The battery lasts 5 years.
Okay.
And you register it here in the States. You register it with the NOAA, and you can have it in your pack, and you have, an emergency beacon. If you're hiking a little bit more and you want to do things like message and maybe get the weather, then look into something like a Garmin InReach or a Zoleo or a Motorola Defy. There's different sort of levels of service on their subscription plans. Not everything fit, there's a lot of different flavors. And if you go to my channel, I have reviews on all of them. I'm going to be doing a video shortly where I, kind of make some recommendations on what to get based on who you are.
Okay.
But there's a lot of choices. If you just want to get something without having to think about it or research, just get a Garmin InReach 2, get the basic plan, and you should be, InReach Mini 2, get the basic plan, and you should be fine.
Okay.
I would say in terms of tips, couple things that will help you out. For all of these, whether it's a PLB or an InReach, all of these things have a online kind of control panel where you can put information in about yourself. And that's used by the people handling your emergency. So if you make that rich and accurate and, give them as much information as you can, they're going to be able to help you better.
Really?
So for example, so if you, I always have in there like, experienced hiker, have gear for overnight stay, no medical conditions, things like that. If you're doing like a through hike or a backpacking trip, right? If you're going out or doing something specific, putting your route in there, saying I'm doing the JMT or I'm doing Cactus to Clouds, that will help them understand where you are or where you should be. That's huge.
Okay.
Other thing along the same lines is sharing your plans. Even if you have a satellite communicator, sharing your plans with your family. It's so easy these days. Everything has a share button on it. If you find a trail on my website or All Trails or whatever it might be, just share it with a family member and say, I'm doing this. I should be home by 6. If you don't hear from me, call the sheriff's department.
Right.
Let
me talk to you about that, because you mentioned like front loading people, or front loading the device, or front loading whatever with all that information. So I don't know if this relates, but when the most recent search and rescue phone call that I made, again, was in Yosemite. This is like just a couple of years ago. And I had some buddies go missing, and they were, they were like 12 hours overdue. And so I called search and rescue. There was no sign of them. We kind of looked everywhere for them. And I got on the phone with them, and the first person I talked to was like, please give me all of the information. Do they have any health issues? What clothes are they wearing? What do they look like? So they went through this like list of questions, which were all reasonable questions. So I answered all those questions. Then they passed me on to the next person, whoever that was, literally asked the same list of questions. And then eventually, after I talked to that person, I went to a third person who asked the same list of questions. And so I don't know if I'm a little jaded, but like, is front loading going to help? Like, for real?
It will. I've actually been a little bit different with the device because you're doing it beforehand online. And when you hit that SOS button, a couple things happen, but that emergency dispatch center, whether it's the Garmin response one or whether it's something like Overwatch and Rescue, which is the Spot and the Motorola one, your file will come up, right? And all that stuff that you put in there will come up, and they'll know that right away. And that's not information that you're going to have to go back and forth and communicate on your device. So you can save battery time, you can save, kind of some hassle there. So it definitely helps. It's something that everyone has told me to do beforehand.
Okay.
I think your experience at Yosemite is indicative of the fact that there's not really a standard. I mean, Yosemite, I think, is probably one of the places where it's the most together. And, I could only imagine the calls that they get like on an August afternoon at sunset, like the amount of people, who's missing, what's going on.
Gotcha.
It's probably a lot. But there needs to be more of a standard in terms of what the experience is, and how it's dealt with here in the United States. And I think it's inevitable at some point, but.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't like my experience because I don't know that I'm freaking out, but I was definitely like heavily concerned for my friends. 12 hours overdue is, like way more than what I was expecting, even on like a worst case scenario basis. And so having to run through the information, I was like, hey, can you just like go look for them, please?
Yeah.
Can you do something? Send a helicopter. Anyway. So,
well, I mean, and what's interesting too, is, when you give that information, that starts a chain of events that, starts with like an assessment of what needs to be done. Generally, there's not people on hand to do it, right? So you might have to call like a team of volunteers. You have to organize a search. It's a whole thing. So the more information that you provide, the more precise that operation could be, right? Like if you, let's just say you're in Yosemite Valley, right? And you're going hiking and you tell your wife, I'm going hiking and I'll be back later. And you don't show up. And your wife goes to the ranger and says, it's my husband. He had a white shirt on and he has a backpack. He said he's going hiking in Yosemite. Well, I mean, that's thousands of miles, right? Is he on Hetch Hetchy? Is he in Wawona? Is he in the Yosemite Valley? Where is he?
Right.
If you were to say, share, just share an all trails thing. I'm going to go and do, the mist trail up to Vernal Falls, and I'll be back at 5:00, whatever. Then you can tell that to the people who are trying to rescue you. They might already have people out there that can just radio to look for you. It's an entirely different thing. They can ask people coming off the trail if they saw somebody matching your description. It's a much different operation. So
gotcha.
That's important. And before I forget, to your original question, another tip, always make sure that your account, if you're using your phone with one of these devices, always make sure that you're logged in before you go hiking. You're logged in and it's synced on Bluetooth. Oh, believe me, I've learned that one the hard way, not in a critical way where I had to call SOS, but I've been out, in the middle of nowhere and be like, oh, I'm just going to send my wife a check-in, and been on a device that requires a phone to work. And then I'm not logged in, and I was logged in, the night before. And don't wait till you get to the trailhead, because a lot of times trailheads don't have cell phone reception too. So,
yeah, I don't know if you had this experience too. I was trying to compare like who would send the message faster between my Zoleo and my Garmin, and we turned them on, and I had like I think I tested them out before we went, but the Zoleo required some sort of software update like on the app on my phone or something, and so it just wouldn't work. I was like, oh. So I would just, if I was relying on this, like, bummer, you're stuck, you need a software update. And it was like it wasn't, where it was way over or outdated. It just, bad timing. But I thought, I don't know how many software updates they have throughout the year, but I don't want to succumb to bad timing again.
And that's the Achilles heel with devices like the Zoleo and the Motorola that require a cell phone to really get the most out of them. All the devices have an SOS button on them. Okay. And as far as I know, they all have a check-in button. But if you want to message on the device, you have to use your phone. And there was I think his name's Hike with Mike. He posted a video. Him and his buddy were hiking Whitney, I think this was last November, and they encountered some people in bad condition. And they were coming back down, and they had a Zoleo, but their phone battery ran out. So they were not able to, they were able to hit the SOS button, but not really know anything that happened after that.
Okay.
And Mike had an inReach, which, works with the buttons, and you don't really need to update the firmware. It's pretty reliable. It's a technology that's been around for many years now. Okay. And you don't really have that problem with the inReach, which is why I use that as my main device out there.
Gotcha. Okay. So you mentioned that inReach a couple of times, but you mentioned a couple other devices as well. So for somebody who's going to maybe send a couple messages, they're not like constantly texting or trying to go through social media, but they want to have access to text messaging. They of course want to have the SOS button. When you consider everything, so bang for your buck, the functionality, the ease of use, the weight of the device itself, just everything you could possibly consider, assuming that somebody's pretty tech savvy and can figure out a new device, which one would you suggest overall?
I'd say bang for the buck. It's probably the Motorola Defy satellite link.
Okay.
I mentioned earlier, I think it's like $150 normally, but it goes on sale. It's a little bit different. They had some growing pains when they first came out. There were some problems. If you look online and reviews, it's, there's some pretty harsh ones in there. And
right. I've seen
some of them are fair. Some of them are a little, maybe not so fair. Some of it's user error, but it's evolved and it doesn't work 100% of the time out there. And I'll talk about that in a second too, because I think it's important, but it works very well for me. I've been testing it since it came out, maybe almost a year now.
Oh, okay.
I might mess that up, but quite a while, 9 months maybe. And it works the majority of the time. And, it's low latency. It's affordable. It's $5 a month to start and say $150. It's lightweight. The battery will last you a couple days. And I've had a good experience with that. But again, you need your phone. So if you want to get a device that you don't need the phone, the InReach Mini or the InReach GPS Map 67i is a good one. But yeah, so that's the most bang for your buck. Overall, I think one of the things people said with it was it's not reliable because you need a southward facing connection to make it work. I've had this thing sitting in the center console of my car when I'm driving around, and it's got a connection the whole time I'm sending messages. Yeah, it's you have to be realistic with these devices. Even the Garmin InReach, which is based on Iridium, and the Zoleo, which have 100% coverage worldwide, there's times when they don't work. I've had them not work and fail on a send for me. Not a lot, but it happens, Right. And to think that you're going to get 100% of coverage all the time with an InReach is not realistic expectation. You have to think this is a little piece of plastic and a circuit board and a battery, and you're sending messages, sometimes in the case of the Motorola Defy, like 22,000 miles into space and back. So, when you look at it that way, it's really amazing. But you just have to be realistic about it.
Okay.
That said, if you want something that's going to have maybe a little bit more coverage and you're willing to pay a little bit more, the Garmin InReach is probably the best bet.
Okay. All right. Good information. What can we look forward to coming out? Anything you got, any new content on the website or any YouTube vids we can look forward to?
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, if you've been following the channel for a while, you might have noticed that my videos have changed a bit in maybe the last year. I'm kind of reworking my guiding approach or my guide approach for these stories. So look for more of that in the future. I'm going to be doing more bucket list hikes. I have a plane ticket to Tokyo. I'm going to be doing Mount Fuji.
Wow. Okay.
Which I'm excited about. I'm going to be revisiting some of the classics that I haven't hit in several years. And I'm also spending a decent amount of time having different looks at some of the common hikes in places like Southern California and some of the national parks where there might be another kind of twist to a trail guide where, you could do it the regular way or you could do it this other way that might be a little bit more interesting if you've done it before. So
okay.
That stuff I love. I love exploring. I love checking out new trails and doing all of that. So hopefully this year there'll be more of that type of thing for the people who, watch me and like the fact that I share little known trails. Hopefully there'll be some more of that type of stuff mixed in with the more popular trails as well.
Gotcha. Okay. So like I said, we'll have that linked in the show description. And Cris, man, thank you so much for taking the time.
Carl,
really appreciate your expertise. Like this has been very valuable and helpful to a lot of folks out there. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carl. I appreciate it. And if anyone has any questions on stuff, just leave me a comment on any of the YouTube videos. I'm usually pretty good about answering those. So
All right.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. All right, man. What'd you think about that?
I mean, wow. Wealth of knowledge, right?
Yes.
A well of knowledge, I should say, not a well. Yeah, there's some crazy stories in there about the airplane panel. I did hear about that. Like the iPhone fell all the way down, like and just it still worked. What does that tell you?
Yeah, is that what does that tell you? It tells you that was a fortunate event because I've recently dropped my phone just like from pocket height, and that did not happen. So
yeah,
do you think that needs to be retested?
I feel like it does. I feel like they
just kind of open the door, like roll down the window during a plane flight, just like toss it out.
I mean, it doesn't even have to be a plane. Let's just start small. We'll go helicopter height, and then we'll see what that does. Skydive height.
Maybe if you're using the beacon to get rescued on the way to the hospital, just kind of chuck your phone out there.
Yeah.
Try to aim for like a neighborhood so it's easy to, find my iPhone might actually work.
Yeah, that's true.
Just saying. Yeah.
That's true. Local residential area.
If you're willing to do that and you have some new intel for us, please let us know because I don't think Derek is confident enough to do that.
I am not at the moment. No. Correct.
All right. So these beacons, his conclusion is basically like the beacons are still better than the iPhones in terms of like their emergency system.
Okay.
The phones are getting better. Do you have a prediction? When are we done with the beacons? When can we leave these devices home?
We talked about this.
I know, but now we're a year down the road. We're a year later.
I'm trying to remember what our prediction was like a year or two ago. Was it like 10 years?
That we'd be there by now. I think we were wrong. We would have been there by now.
I don't know if it was this quick.
You don't think so?
No. I feel like it was like 5 or 6 years. I feel like we still got a few years.
Do you?
Yeah. Right. Maybe 2028 is my prediction.
We'll put a little bookmark in this episode and we'll come back and find out if you're right.
2028, everybody. If I'm wrong, I'll buy you a bag of moon cheese.
Oh, okay. Nice.
There you go.
So, okay. Last thing was he mentioned, so we kind of did like the breakdown with the Motorola Defy Beacon versus the Garmin's and stuff.
Yeah.
So the subscription, the service, the device itself, way cheaper for the Motorola Beacon, still works. It's just not, it doesn't as quickly latch onto the satellite as the Garmin's do. But the Garmin subscription service is way more expensive. The device way more expensive. So I want you to go into advice mode here, Derek. If you're starting from scratch, which one would you suggest people buy?
And starting from scratch, backpacking wise,
like or they just don't own one. Either way,
I still think I go with the reputation. I mean, you got to prioritize money and safety, right? If you're out there and you feel unsafe, and if you're going somewhere crazy or new, you don't want to be sitting there and being like, "Gosh, this beacon is I'm 5 hours in this beacon. Like, why didn't I just spend the money? Like, it's not worth it. It's your life. So yeah, I would spend more money.
Okay,
I just would. I mean, I think there's still, what's the Garmin one, like $300 or something now? 200? What is it now? I guess it depends which one you get.
Depends, like 300.
But they have. You just want something reliable. You want to be able to push the button and not have to think about it.
Right. It's hard to argue with what you're saying, except I'll do it anyway. So I don't think it's life or death. I really don't. I think that there's definitely scenarios that, I mean, realistically could be life or death.
There are, yeah.
Yeah. But I think that if you're talking about like, we need the helicopter right now, you're waiting a minimum of 2 hours, you're going to die. Like, it's just not going to come. If it's something like where we talk about with Dixie, where it's like, okay, I'm not feeling well, I have time, then you'd have time for that Motorola Defy Beacon to latch onto the satellite. So for
how subjective is that though? It's super subjective. Though.
Well, I'm just basing it on scenarios we've had, right?
Yeah, well, sure.
The people that we've encountered that have used it, broken bones, not life and death. And so if you need to wait an extra minute or two, and these are people, and this is talking about if we actually use it. Most people don't ever use these things.
What do you mean minute or two? It could be like an hour or two.
To latch onto a satellite? No.
No. Like, but for that, maybe Motorola's. That's what I'm saying. It's like, do they have the reputation that they're going to be there in 2 hours?
Oh yeah, I think the SOS once it's pushed, it's all the same. Once they have notified, it's all the same.
Maybe
it's just accessing the satellite.
Maybe we need more details on that. You know,
you don't believe what I just said.
So. No, I'm saying not the satellite connection. I'm saying what is Motorola's track record on, the speed of getting a chopper to where you are in general.
Yeah, I think the fastest I've heard is 2 hours. That's the fastest
for Motorola.
For anybody.
Right, that's what I'm saying. We know that for Garmin, but we don't really know it for Motorola.
I think it's all going to the same place. That everybody's getting notified the same way.
Let's hope so. Okay.
You're right. We should probably know that. You're right.
Okay.
All right. So all that to say, like, I still hate bringing these things. Like, I hate it with a passion.
They're so small now, though. They're like right here. It's like
They are. They're expensive. I don't like having to renew the subscription before I go out there. I get it. I it's like a necessary evil, but I love the days where we don't have to bring that stuff. Just saying.
Of course. Well, yeah, that was back in the day when they didn't even have it.
Yeah.
But I think it's like you're gonna not want it until you need it, and then you'd be like, "Wow, I'm glad I have it." Right?
That's wisdom right there, folks. Wisdom.
Boom.
That's an American proverb by Derek.
Write it down. Every time I get it right and Carl knows it, he mocks it just like he did.
Anytime you say you're not going to want it until you need it, that could be true about anything in the world. Literally anything in the world.
We're talking about beacons. Don't be Mr. Devil's Advocate with your whole life. It's so exhausting. The B&B is sick of it. I'm sick of it.
I wish I had 17 airbags in my car because I keep on getting in accidents. Well, but most cars only come
17 airbags.
Yeah,
wow.
But you're not going to want it unless you need it.
Why do they start upping the standard to like 4 to 6? Why'd they do that, you think?
Because of me? Probably. I don't know.
Probably because you were complaining. It's probably what it is.
All right. Do you have trivia this week?
I got trivia, and it is bug hazard trivia.
What?
We'll see it. We're going to do it right after this.
It's January, folks. You've recommitted yourself to getting back in shape, eating better, planning bucket list trips. Our good friend Rowan from Summit Strength will help you get fit, strong, and resilient so you can conquer your 2024 adventures. Rowan uses rock-solid evidence and years of experience to get you trail ready for all circumstances. Rocky conditions, steep grades, sustained climbs. Reach out to him at summitstrength.com.au.
Okay. Insect hazard trivia. Or not insect, just bug hazard trivia. We got a quick 5.
I like the pun on his name there. I like that.
You like that? We got, wasn't it, I'm just trying to be you, I guess.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so we have 5 quick questions. It's a little quiz. I took it online. I got all 5. I want to see if you can get all 5. These are quick. They're all multiple choice.
I don't believe you got all 5. I don't believe
I should have taken a screenshot of my 100%.
Yeah, after you redid the quiz 5 times.
No, 0 times. All right, here we go. What's the best way to avoid an insect bite? Is it 2, A, cover your arms, legs, and ankles and wear some lightweight clothing when outdoors? Is it B, to apply insect repellent? Is it C, go indoors at night when many biting insects are more active? Or is it D, all the above?
All the above.
Oh, okay. Yes really or no? I'm going to tell you
the best out of those, I think, is to wear the clothing, though. That can actually...
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah.
That's what, yeah. Yes or no? Can an insect bite be life-threatening, Carl?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. It's easy ones. True or false? Horseflies don't bite people.
I now would like to believe that you got 5 out of 5. That is false. They do bite people.
They do. They got me good last trip too. Right through my pants.
Did they bite through your pants?
Dude, yeah. I couldn't figure it out. It was the weirdest thing. Did you know they're like one of the fastest animals on the earth? I didn't know that.
Are they an animal? Are flies an animal?
Are they an animal?
I'm not a science person.
And people think that I am a simpleton sometimes, Okay, which of
they
these
do think that. You're right.
Yeah. Well, what do you think? Why? Because I hang out with you and it rubs off. That's why.
I'm sure.
Which of these insects is a mite? Are you ready? A mite.
Okay.
Is it a tick? Is it scabies? Is it C, chiggers? Or is it D, is it scabies and chiggers? Which one is a mite? Which ones are mites? That's probably the toughest question. Mites. This is the toughest question.
Yeah, I don't know.
So you have ticks, scabies, chiggers, or scabies and chiggers. Which one is a mite?
I don't know what's a scabie.
Do you want me to explain it to you? The scabies kind of burrow under your skin a little bit.
Okay.
Make you itch, get red bumps. Chiggers don't burrow, but they.
Yeah. Do the chiggers bite?
I mean, I don't want to just guess, dude.
Okay, I guess I'll go with the chiggers.
Incorrect. It's chiggers and scabies are both mites. Ticks are not mites.
Okay.
Those I did know that one actually. Which is you put.
Nah, I don't believe you again.
You don't have to.
Okay.
Which of these insects bite? The last question. Which of these insect bites? Wait, I'm sorry. I can't even read right. Which of these insects can bite or sting? Is it caterpillars, flies, mites, or D, all the above?
Caterpillars bite or sting? Never had a caterpillar sting or bite, really. And flies or mites?
Horse fly.
Yeah, have you ever? That's a bite, right?
It says bite or sting.
Stung by a fly?
It can do one or the other.
Yeah. Or I don't, was the first one again?
Caterpillars, mites, flies, or all of the above.
If you had a none of the above, I probably would have chosen none of the above. But since I don't know, I guess I'll go all the above.
It's all the above. Yeah, they all can bite. They either bite or sting.
Okay.
Right? Caterpillars can hurt you too, depending on what.
Living in Colorado, man, we don't get a lot of. We have like a lower bug population here. We get the mosquitoes in the mountains, and that's about it.
You got an 80%. That's possible. You got a 4 or 5. Nice job, buddy.
Thank you.
You are special.
Thank you. All right.
Good job.
Okay, I got 2 tidbits. You ready?
Oh, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
First one is we got another Patreon supporter. We are so thankful to Leslie.
Leslie.
What's
Leslie?
that?
Leslie. We have a place called Leslie Pools. Is she the owner of Leslie Pools out here?
She is. How'd you know that?
Is that right?
No.
You're lying.
She actually lives in Belgium.
Belgium with the chocolate. That's some good chocolate out there.
They do. Yeah. She said that they're known. Her area's known for the chocolate and the beer. They're kind of good for that. But she's heading over stateside. She's doing Zion National Park and Bryce Canyon National Park this May.
Good choice.
So yeah, she was asking me for some trip planning tips and stuff, which is part of the Patreon deal. So I gave her hopefully some helpful information because there's a lot of specific permit getting in the process.
Correct.
But she's an adventurer, and her tagline, let's say I'm going to try to do this from memory, is if you're not thinking that you're going to starve, freeze to death, get eaten, or something along those lines, that it's not a real adventure.
Okay.
Do you agree with that?
To a point.
Okay.
I think you want to challenge yourself in some fashion. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Either unintentionally or intentionally, but hopefully it's, I don't know.
Well, okay. I mean,
it's more fun unintentionally.
Yeah, we can talk about this as it relates to last summer, because last summer there's literally not a map of the area we're going to. We were using the online tools, which were like sort of accurate but unclear. And then when we got there, like hardly a trail in most of the areas. Yeah. And so we just have kind of an outline of generally where we're going. It's a lot of off trail stuff with not a lot of intel. And so we're just hoping to be able to complete this. Do you like that structure?
That's the adventure. I mean, I don't love it.
We don't know if we're going to make it. We don't know if we're going to make it.
I don't love it, but it's fun to do it with you guys because I know we're going to have a fun time. And we'll figure it out. Yeah. So
you had a good attitude for 90% of the time.
You had a great attitude until your emotional breakdown, and I appreciated all that other than the breakdown. So
my emotional breakdown. The guy that slams trekking poles on logs is accusing somebody else of the emotional breakdown. I love it. Love it.
That wasn't an emotional breakdown. That was just frustration.
Okay. No emotion.
At least you always talk about me. Can I admit stuff? Like I freely admitted that I was frustrated, smashing my shoulder. You have not freely admitted that you had an emotional breakdown and don't want to
I had an emotional breakdown.
Just would say otherwise. Okay.
There was a moment where I was like, do you feel like that's an emotional breakdown?
That was not. The way that you can downplay something is.
How would you describe it?
I described it as an emotional breakdown.
No, like what did I do? Like physically, what did I do?
We've been over this. We had a whole episode about this.
We had bonus episodes. We haven't fully revealed this to everybody.
What do you mean fully revealed? What are you talking about?
Sounds like you don't talk about it.
You lost your cool and everybody knew it. And then you needed me to tell you to go apologize like a child does to a person he hurts.
Justin Outdoors, new to our July trip, literally said on our last episode that he was wanting to come back on to the July trip. So I feel like whatever happened probably wasn't that big of a deal.
He is, again, downplaying. He is level-headed, and he is with it, and I get it. You had a struggle, and that's why you asked me for advice. And I get it. I love you. I appreciate it. Do you think, and I was like, Carl, you need to go apologize. Stop being a punk. Go apologize. But you didn't have an emotional breakdown. You're right. Okay.
I love your stories. All right.
That's all I got. Guys, thanks again. If you have that sugar in your life, I feel your pain every day and every time I do this podcast. We will see you next time.